This is Support is Sexy, episode 516. Tell the truth. Are you really stuck? Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so excited to have you here. It just would not be the same without you. And today I am super excited to share with you our rewind for today, looking back on episodes that really had resonance with you and with me over the past 2 years. Now, tell the truth. Are you really stuck? I mean, really stuck. And I ask that because sometimes, we have these conversations with other people or with ourselves and just say, I feel stuck. I don't know what to do. I don't know which way to go. But really, are you stuck or are you just scared? And look, it's okay to be scared. I've been there. I'm scared all the time. But are you brave and you're trying and you're moving forward anyway? You're figuring it out as you go? Or are you choosing to stay, quote unquote, stuck when the truth might be that you're scared? We don't always know how to move forward. But as I always say, let go of the how. But still, again, sometimes that's not even the reason. We might have an idea of the direction we want to move in or the thing we want to try. But again, we're saying we're stuck when we might just be scared to make a move. And I ask that because today's rewind is with author and serial entrepreneur Heather Havenwood. And Heather shares, among many other great things in this conversation within this episode, something that her mentor said to her when she was going through a really low time in her business and in her personal life. You're not a tree, you can move. And I thought that was so powerful. Again, maybe what I was going through at that time, pretending I was stuck. You're not a tree, you can move. You don't have roots planted in the ground that's keeping you in some situation that you either don't want to be in or a situation you're choosing to be in. You're not a tree, you can move. So I know you're going to enjoy this conversation with Heather, which first aired in November of 2017, originally episode 356 of the Support is Sexy podcast. But again, I have a feeling it's going to be right on time for many of you. So now, without further ado, Heather Havenwood. So Heather, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I am thrilled to chat with you.
Thank you for having me. And I just have to say, you probably don't know this, but I stalked you and I wanted to be on your show because Support is Sexy. That's Sexy Boss and Support is Sexy, right? So I was like, I want to be on her show.
Oh, that's excellent. I didn't
Did you know that?
No, I did not know that. Two sexy ladies.
I want to be on your show. So thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you for your book. Everyone, I'm going to have a link to it, but I just have to start off telling you that I am in love with Heather's book, Sexy Boss. How female entrepreneurs are beating the big boys while changing the rule book for money, success, and even sex. And how you can too. There we go. Heather's book. We love it. Done. It's really good. I really love it. I fell asleep reading it, not because it was in any way boring, just because I was trying so hard to get through the whole thing. It's just excellent. So thank you, Heather, for this wisdom that we're going to talk about today.
Thank you.
Of course. First question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Oh, that's a great question. So first, I did not fall in love with it. Mm-hmm. I think, honestly, entrepreneurship is something that is found. It finds entrepreneurs versus us finding it, kind of like love in a way. Entrepreneurship found me. I didn't go looking for it because I was definitely not surrounded by people in my life that were saying you should be an entrepreneur. In fact, it was the complete opposite. I had people in my life, father, mother, family, friends, stuff like that saying, oh, you shouldn't be. In fact, when I started on my little bit of a journey, I was working for a company / entrepreneur. My mom found out through the grapevine of the family that I was stepping into entrepreneurship. And she called me and she said, she's Southern, okay, so I had to do the Southern thing. Mm-hmm. Honey, I found out you're going to be an entrepreneur. I just don't want you to do that. I found you a job in Hope, Arkansas for $8 an hour as a secretary. And so,
I love
like,
it.
You just got so you have to get like the world of my mom, right? Like, she's loving me, but I'm like, seriously? You know what I mean? Like, did you just
entrepreneur used to mean that you can't find a job, right? That's what people used to think. Right.
Yeah. She was very much concerned about this. So, I mean, I understand that. But I fell into it. And it really, entrepreneurship is who I am. It's kind of a core piece of who I am. It really is who I am. And I realized that around 2007 and 8. So right before I wrote my book, actually, is when I really got that's who I am. And it doesn't matter. When you get that's who you are, it doesn't matter what business you're creating or not creating. When you're an entrepreneur, it's just all about the journey and the game.
Absolutely. Now tell us about your Southern background and where you grew up.
Yeah, I'm a Baptist girl gone bad, I guess. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, in kind of a southern, my mother's very southern, born and raised Oklahoma and Arkansas and the whole 9 yards. And I was brought up to be a debutante, she was very upset when I did not rush in sorority because I was like 3 generations of sorority. So you could get the world of that, right? So I was very brought up that particular way that I was supposed to be married and have babies by the time I was 20. And I didn't go that route, obviously. So yeah, that's my background. I was not taught exactly to go out and be an entrepreneur. It was kind of like go to school and get the MRS degree, which I didn't know what that was either until my first year in Baylor. And I had girls around me saying, I'm just here for the MRS degree. And I'm like, I don't remember seeing that one on the pamphlet.
Right. You're like, I didn't see that option.
I don't see that option. They're like, well, I'm just here for a husband. I'm like, okay, got it. So, I mean, you can get the world I grew up in. I definitely was not nurtured to be an entrepreneur.
So what was it, do you think, about you that made you sort of go against all of the expectations for you as a young girl at that time?
Well, it's because there's a T-shirt that I have way back in the back of my closet, and I just love it because it's so true. And it says, I'm unemployable. I'm unemployable. I don't do well in the corporate environment. So what happened is I started working for corporate America back in like 97, 98, big corporate America, SBC Global in Dallas, right? So huge company. And I was an outside sales. So what you need to know is I'm outside sales, I'm female, I'm blonde, and I'm 24. And the average coworker is 40, 45 with a beer gut, right? So I was kind of the girl that wasn't supposed to get hired. In fact, when I went to the job interview and I told him I wanted B2B sales, he laughed at me and told me I should be customer service. And I laughed at him and said, come on, just do like a bet against me and, we're good to go. So he did a bet against me, and I actually outlasted Mike. Oh, poor Mike. So Mike's no longer there.
Poor Mike.
But I lasted for 4 years, and I was number one in the country. Not out of my region or state because I was in Fort Worth, but I was considered in a small market, which is Fort Worth is considered small because we're, up against Dallas. And I actually beat not only my teammates, being the big boys, but all the boys, LA, New York, Chicago, everywhere, Seattle. So I was number one in the country. And as soon as I got my award, hoping it was a pink Cadillac, but it wasn't. It was one of those like $10 engraving things. And a pat on the head, I got fired. And I didn't really understand what happened. Well, because there was this whole thing called I'm 26, 27, making $110,000 a year, and the average person around me was 45 male, and they didn't like that.
And so who do you think she is?
Yeah, who do you think she is? So, and I didn't understand that. To me, right, I was taught, go work for a big company, make them money, they give you a little, and you're happy. I didn't understand internal politics or the female thing, or I just thought me working really hard would overcome all of that, right? So this is how I found entrepreneurship. So here I am, just left this corporate environment, fired. I just finished my degree. I had to go to school at night because I went to school at night while I was doing that job to work my way through school. And I thought to myself, I don't know what I want. I just don't want that. I don't know if you experienced that before, maybe in relationships. You're like, I'm not sure what kind of guy I want. I just not want that guy.
Right.
Right?
They say that's half the battle. Knowing what you don't want is a big part of it too, as much as knowing what you do want.
Exactly. And so here's what happened. This is a true story. Here's what happened. So I'm sitting there on the couch with my girlfriend who just got engaged, and her boyfriend's like clicking the channel on a Sunday, and he stops it at this infomercial, and the infomercial went like this: do you want to control your life? Do you want to make more money? I'm like, yes. That's it. That's all I need to know. So go to the seminar tomorrow at 1:00. And I'm like writing this down all secretively. Of course, not telling my girlfriend who, she's a big company girl. So I go to this hotel by myself at 1:00 the next day. And I totally lied to my girlfriend I'm going home or something. I sit in the seat. They did this whole presentation for 2.5 hours about how to buy and sell houses or something like that, right? And of course, they pitch you into this $3,000 seminar. Okay, mm-hmm. We've all been there, okay? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't have $3,000. And then they said the magic words. This is one of those moments you're like, I am so glad I'm a girl, right? They said, but for your spouse, it's $1,000. So I nudged the stranger next to me, and I'm like, hey, can I be your spouse? It's like,
wait, so sure. if the one spouse pays $3,000, then the other spouse pays $1,000?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I became this dude's spouse. No lies. We go to the back of the room, right? And different last names, no ring, different addresses, different credit. I mean, okay, it's like totally obvious, right? And they're like, I'm his spouse. And they kind of gave me the wink, like,
okay.
Right. So they go, but they said, we'll take your money. I'm like, okay, great. Here's my $1,000. I'm all happy. The next week is the seminar. That's how it usually works. They come into town, and then a week later, they come back into town to do the event. So this whole time they're kind of watching me, the company, the people who was running it. And they finally pulled me aside, tell me what was going on. I told them like what happened, 6 months prior, worked with the big company. And they go, why don't you come work for us? So I ended up moving to Orlando and started traveling the country with the largest seminar company in the country. And that's how I ended up in the speaking information business in 2001. And that's where I've been ever since. So when you're surrounded by entrepreneurs, when you're surrounded by not only around entrepreneurs, but you're actually in seminars encouraging people to start their own businesses. I mean, you kind of have to start to be your own word. And so I started doing real estate investing, and then I started doing information marketing. And then my first online company was in 2005 from $0 to $1 million. So just like, that's kind of what happened, is I just kind of found myself inside of this construct called information marketing, seminars, authors, speakers, and entrepreneurship.
And you got that position because you weren't going for that position when you signed up with that $1,000. You were signing up to be a part of the program, but they saw something in you and brought you in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, okay.
Obviously, I sold my way in, mm-hmm. right? So they're like, well, she's kind of ballsy. Let's have her, travel with us. So I actually ended up traveling full time, literally on the road, 50 weeks out of the year. From 2001 to 2006, I produced over 450 seminars and events.
Wow.
And learned the art of how to sell from stage. Nowadays, we call it VSLs, mm-hmm. right? There's an art when you're saying in front of a bunch of strangers, and in 90 minutes, you have to sell them into a $3,000 program. You really learn the art and science of copywriting and trust and understanding and communication and sales. I mean, you learn all that very quickly, right? If not, you starve. Right. No kidding. Right? It's like, you have ramen noodles tonight, or are we going to Ruth Chris? So it's a big difference when you're on the road, schlepping around a suitcase. You really learn the art and science of that. And that's where I learned most of my copywriting and everything that I do today online. Now, I transferred all that to online, but I still do that today.
So as you mentioned, in 2006, you grew your own online information marketing company from $0 to $1 million in sales in less than 12 months, right? And that's because of all the expertise you gained being on the road.
Yes, absolutely.
What would you say were three components of your success in that business?
Well, it's the information marketing business, which is what I still do to this day. I now still coach people in that space. That particular business was an information marketing company where you had what I call the guru, as we call it, or the expert, right? And then you have the marketing behind. There's two elements. So when I work with a lot of speakers now, I'm like, okay, you have this expertise. That's great. Is it marketable? Number one. Number two, who's doing the marketing behind the scenes? Most times they try to outsource that. And I'm like, you've really got to own that. So that's where I step in. Back then, it was this guy. He was a lawyer. He didn't know anything about marketing. But we teamed up, and it was the right timing, in particular about real estate investing. And we just, he did exactly what I told him to do. I told him what to say and how to speak and how to sell, and he didn't know how to do all that. And I produced his event and seminar and his entire product, and we just skyrocketed really fast. And that was in 2004 and 5, 4 or 5 the year. And then now I had a bad business partner, right? So he was like, oh, thank you for building me a company. So he took it. And within 2006 and 2007, I was in bankruptcy and foreclosure. So, I learned my lesson. Someone always asks me, what did you learn from that? I'm like, what I learned from that? I learned that I now have a lawyer on speed dial. That's what that's called. So you learn quickly in business that ideas are great and money is amazing, but there's other aspects to the business you have to be aware of called contracts and making sure you have a lawyer on your side. Mm-hmm. So you learn quickly.
So tell us about that. You mentioned that in your book, Sexy Boss, the story of how you built this business together that you just mentioned with this person. And then you went away to a seminar, I think, for a weekend and came back and the accounts are closed, the money's gone, everything's gone. And now you have basically nothing at that time. So you've told us what you learned from that experience, which I can't imagine what it was like to go through that, the shock of it and still having to continue on. But what would you say, or how would you say you overcame that time of, you mentioned in the book, of not having that cause you to feel like a failure? Because some of us might have just stopped there and given up.
Well, I definitely felt like a failure on many levels. Part of the process is there was a friend of mine named Bill Duquette. He did something quite interesting at that time. It was about 5 or 6 months after. I'm still kind of in the whirlwind of it, hadn't filed yet. I'm still trying to figure out what happened. And I remember I'm at this kind of event, this weekend getaway, and he says to me something quite unique. He says, he gave me a pen, okay, and he gave me a piece of paper, and he goes, I want you to literally write every word I say. I'm like, okay. He said, I, Heather, give myself full license to fail. Now, I'm sitting on the floor on this couch, right, and I can barely write it. I literally start bawling. I mean, I'm just like, I'm a failure. Why are you making me do this, And he said, Heather, when you give yourself full permission to fail, in that moment, you're giving yourself full permission to succeed. You have not given yourself full permission to fail. And it was just like, I can still feel it in my body of how much that resonated at the time. Because in my view, so you got to get like a construct of my view, I was beating the odds, right? My mom thought I would fail and I didn't. I was doing well, and then here I am with this big scarlet letter kind of like shame of like going back to my family. Look, I failed. You're right. I failed. And it was such a shameful moment during that time. And I didn't really have a fallback. I didn't have like a hubby that he could like, don't worry, honey, I got a job. It's all good. Just hang out on the couch and do bonbons. I didn't have that. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any backup plan or any savings or anything like that. So I really didn't know what to do. My identity was caught up in that business. So it was really challenging for me to figure that out. So I took about 2 years off. One, because it was a recession in 2006, 7, 8, and took that time to do the foreclosure and all that, process. And I ended up living in Marco Island with a dear friend of mine on his couch, which I really appreciate. And the one goal I had when I was on Marco Island was to go to the sunset every day. That was it. Like, that was the only thing I did that day, every day when I was there. And I really had to get at a core level who I was. And that's what I meant by when I first started the conversation. I got on a core level sitting on the beach in Marco Island that I got at a core level who I am as an entrepreneur. I don't even need a business to have and get that. It's like a dancer. Dancer can get that's who they are. They don't need to have the music playing to get or be dancing on the stage. To be a dancer, right. To be, right, it's core. Or an athlete. I think about Michael Jordan. He's gone from NBA to golf to baseball. Who he is as an athlete. It doesn't matter the game. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's core, right? It's just like who he is. He steps on the field and whatever it is, and that's who he is. So it's a core piece versus like a searching for. And I got that at a core level, sitting there on the beach with no credit card, no payment. I nothing. I was broke.
That's so right, because you didn't just lose the business. Yeah. It was things in your personal life as well, as you mentioned, the house and all the other money.
Everything.
Why would he do that? That's so terrible.
I did get a chance to put it part of the podcast, but I did get a chance to confront him about 2 years ago.
You did? What? Okay. Yeah, I have to. I need to know this.
It was quite a moving experience for me.
Because did you have any indication, not to get us too off track, but this is part of your story. Yeah. Did you have any indication that there was enough of a rift between you that this person would take everything and, I mean, these are my words, not yours, but take everything and run, basically?
He did. I mean, so no, I didn't know that. Looking back, you're always like, why didn't I see that?
Right,
you know, but
of course.
There wasn't anything that was like, hey, did you know? I mean, no.
Like, I better not leave town kind of thing.
Yeah, no.
Right.
Because we were doing well. I mean, everything was going well. So in my head, that's what was kind of like the same thing with Southwestern Bell. It's like, why would you fire me? I'm making you money.
Right. So what was it like when you had the chance to have that conversation 2 years ago? You don't have to tell us details about what you said if you don't want, but what was that moment like?
It was good it was closure for me. It was like getting complete. I asked him why. Mm-hmm. I asked him why, and his response was, I thought you stole $500. And I was like, why would I steal anything? And $500 when we were making a month, like what? Why didn't you just tell me something? I even remember that whole deal. And here's what actually happened with that money. And he was like, yeah, so-and-so lied to me. And I'm like, so you just killed everything for $500?
You could have ruined my life for $500?
Yeah. So you could have called me. You could have had a conversation with me. You could have, and anyway, so.
That's such thank you for sharing that with us. But that's such an example, though, of us all, in his case, and a lot of us do this. We come up with our own story. So his story was, you've stolen $500 from me, so now I'm going to fill in the blank. Whereas when, with all of us just thinking about confrontation or conflicts or whatever it is, or just confusion, sometimes it's just confusion. If you just ask the person, have a conversation, don't take the extreme route unnecessarily, and just find out what's really going on. Sometimes you've made up this whole story, and that's not even the case. And
karma's karma. I believe in karma. Because throughout the years, I had seen him in events, but he would, some magic way, he would literally be on the other side of the room, every time that I moved.
I'm sure.
He was, right, there was just, in how we ran into each other was literally on accident, like, it was kind of one of those moments where I think God was like, it's time, you face this, So I was like literally staring at his eyes and he's looking at me. I'm like, okay, we're talking, So
right.
I think
let's have this conversation.
We're having this conversation right now. So I think it's time. It was, for me, it was very completing and very soulful for me about completing the past and all that. But yeah, it is about story and looking back. He did apologize because he said, I didn't trust you. And I trusted somebody else who actually ended up screwing him over later. And I was like, I never did anything like that. And you really ruined my life. At the same time, I said to him in that moment, I said, I want to say thank you, because if it wasn't for you doing that, I would still be building your business. I would still be the girl next to you building your business in your name. And because you did that, and because that happened, it was an opportunity for me to start building my own life. So I think that was the critical piece. And that I wrote my book, Sexy Boss, in 2013, or it launched in 2013. I wrote it in 90 days from the moment concept, because the concept was, it was about my coming out. Up until that point, what you need to know is I didn't tell a soul. Other than people who knew me, like personally, no one knew. Like in the industry, like my friends no one knew. No one knew. So I was shamed, but then I felt like it was kind of my coming out. Like, here's what happened. I never said his name. I still haven't, unless personally asked, I will. But it's more about me kind of coming out and sharing my personal story of how I thought I was smart. I thought I was intelligent. I was a woman. I thought I was okay. It can happen to any of us. And it's not about a victim. It's more about understanding our own power, and that I didn't need him. And I can stand in my own personal power of being a sexy boss. And I don't need to have, him or anyone really, their business to create. I can build my own business. And that's the whole point. That was the whole intention of the book.
Mm-hmm. That's so powerful too. Just the idea that sometimes whatever you believe, God, the universe, circumstance, etc., has to not break you, but break whatever the circumstances that you're in, or cause some kind of. They say every breakthrough comes from a breakdown, right? break whatever it is for you to be able to see, as you said, I can create my own business. I can come back from some, if you can come back from this, you can come back from anything in business. All of these things that you sort of came into your own as a result of that experience that you went through.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you get from the sunsets that sound magical, those sunsets though, to deciding, at what point did you say, I know you in the book was a coming out, but at what point did you decide I need to get up and start doing something on my own? How did you get to that point for people who might be in that space? Yeah,
so absolutely. So this is I was sitting in Marco Island. I've been there about a year, and my friend Paul, who I was living with, he looked at me and he goes, "You gotta get out of here." And because what you need to know is the average age on Marco Island is 80.
It's a retirement community.
Right. And that's great, but they're in a different part of their lives, obviously. And so the energy around that is a particular one. Okay. And I knew that I needed to surround myself with other entrepreneurs, because here's a motto one of my mentors said to me. He said, "You're not a tree, you can move." It's called U-Haul. And here I am in 2006-07. I'm from Texas. My sister's in Austin. And she's like, "Why don't you come here? It's thriving here. You'd be surrounded by other entrepreneurs." And I was like, okay, I didn't have any other plan other than that. It was it. It was like, you're not a tree, you can move. Go surround yourself with other entrepreneurs. But let me give you a different analogy. I know someone right now he's doing great. I'm really proud of him. He's totally changed his career in his late 30s, early 40s to be an actor. Okay, well then, guess where he moved to? He didn't move to LA. He actually moved to Atlanta, because that's where all the movies are being produced right now.
I know.
Right?
I'm here now. I can't believe how many. It's like bigger than LA and New York and anywhere.
Yeah. You think about it. Okay, if you want to be an actor, you go where the acting is. If you want to be on Broadway, you don't try to do it in Kansas City.
Right.
You know, if you're in Wall Street, you don't do it from Atlanta. You know what I mean? Like, you have to put yourself in the space sometimes, even if you don't have a plan. You know, so that was mine. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go put myself around a bunch of entrepreneurs. I don't really like San Francisco, not my thing. I'm from Texas. Austin's booming. Bam. So it wasn't like I had this big plan. It was just like, go do it. Go be in the space, right? You're not a tree, you can move. And that's a big one, because a lot of people say, well, I can't because of kids or this or that. I'm sure we all have circumstances, but if you really want something, you go put yourself in the space, right? It used to be in the 80s, you go to LA, right? 90s LA, now it's Atlanta. It's just how it is. Things have changed. So you want to go put yourself in that space. That's number one. And that was the first thing. The second thing is a friend of mine, Richard, he was in West Palm. He brought me over one day for dinner, and he said something that I use to this day. It's literally sitting here on my board. He said, "I want you to start asking yourself this question before you do anything. Does it feed my confusion or strengthen my clarity?" And I said to him, "Well, I ain't got nothing going on, Richard." He's like, "I know." Start with the chocolate cake you're about to eat. So the question's really powerful, because specifically for women, when this is generally speaking for humans, but women a little bit more so, when we're frustrated, we're upset, we go in chaos, or we spin, as we call it. We spin and spin and spin and spin. When we get clear, okay, then we can move. When we move, we can have momentum. When we have momentum, we can have power. When we have power, things happen. But you've got to stop with the chaos and the swirling. How do you do that? Well, you start with the small things. Does this feed my confusion, strengthen my clarity? Before you get on the podcast, does it strengthen my clarity, or does it cause confusion? You start with small things. You don't start with the massive thing. You start with the tiny little things. Does this task, does it add confusion or create clarity? You want to constantly be adding clarity to your life, not confusion. Does this business deal, is it going to cause confusion in my life? Yeah, well then get rid of it. So anytime you're adding confusion, you're at a loss of power. Anytime you're adding clarity, you're adding power.
That's powerful.
So that's how I moved into really where I'm at today, to be honest, because I didn't know what to do. I was literally starting from nothing.
And getting in that environment around other people who are going in the direction that you either want to go in, or the direction that you see yourself going in eventually is so strong. And I think that question is powerful, but also, you're not a tree, you can move, could change somebody's life. Yeah. Just that simple phrase like that could change your life. It's like, oh, yeah. And even as you mentioned, kids or we all have what we call considerations. Okay, there's things you have to consider, but it's not necessarily a circumstance that's going to hold you where you are. Is there a way to work it out, right? Yeah. You're not a tree, you can move. It's called U-Haul. It's called U-Haul. Amen. I love that. So now, what does it mean to you to be a sexy boss, and how to leverage our sexiness and power?
Okay, great. So how this came to be was a friend of mine, Joe Sugarman, who's actually the forward on my book. He's a copywriter, mentor, and friend. We were having salad one day in Vegas, in between lettuce eating. He looked at me and goes, I think you're like a sexy boss. I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, you're sexy because you're a woman. You own who you are. You own your femininity. But you're a boss because you're a boss of all area of your life. Boom, right? And the words together from the old construct of our society, I think, have a very negative connotation, okay? Mm-hmm. So when you add those together, I didn't really realize it until I came out with my book, that I had this visceral reaction. I mean, some women were like spitting venom at me. Some men were like, what in the world? Like, so there was a lot of negativity and a lot of positive at the same time. And so I realized there was a construct I had to redefine what is sexy boss together. And it actually comes from a book that I literally live by. It's in my hand right now. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, chapter 12, Sex Transmutation. It's the number one underread chapter in that book. People see sex transmutation, they go, skipping it. Okay, but what it is I'm going to read one piece of it. The creative faculty of the mind is given freedom for action. The way has been clear for the sixth sense to function. The sixth sense is the faculty which marks the difference between a genius and an ordinary individual. And the quote unquote sexual energy, okay, not sex, very distinct, sexual energy of a person is the creative faculty, i.e. when you push down one's sexual energy, you're pushing down one's creative energy. If you look at artists, look at Beyonce. Come on, right? Sexy boss, right?
She's from Houston also.
She is. No, she owns it and she's extremely powerful. When you're an artist in music world, it's okay. It's okay to be this powerful woman, sexy. It's like allowed. You put that in corporate America, not right? Why is that? Because they're both creators in entrepreneurship. I'm a creator. You're a creator. It's part of the piece of being an entrepreneur. Business people are creators. We are artists in our own way, right? Might not look like music or like a painting on the wall, but there's creation there. So why do we try to stifle our own sexual energy? Right. So that's what I want to do is I want to help women step into that. Men, if they're charismatic men, right? 007. Who's that guy? Right. We can feel that. We call that a charismatic guy. If that's a woman and she's a businesswoman, not an artist. OK, we're like, who do we think she is? She's a bitch. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's like this negative connotation. I eventually want to flip that. It's OK as a woman to own our creative energy. It's called sexual energy, right? Own that and be in business. Doesn't have to be an artist, right? Literally an artist.
Absolutely. So, now tell us how, speaking of the charisma, how our sexual energy is tied to our charisma. In the book, you mentioned 5 ways that the sexual energy is tied. So starting with the handshake.
Yeah. So the handshake. I was taught handshake when I was a kid. My dad would I don't know, he would sit there and go, I'm going to teach you how to handshake. You're not going to shake like a girl. Anyway, right. So it's all about the touch, right? And it's all about the handshake and the power of it. Not overly aggressive, not under aggressive. If you notice, there's a few politicians, for some reason I watch politicians, when they feel they want to allow the other person to be dominant, they will literally take their handshake and go underneath them. And they'll turn underneath. And it's like, I'm going to submit to you, right? It happens a lot in politics and whatnot, because it's almost like a way to say, I submit to you here. You're more powerful than me. I'm not saying people should do that, but it's just a generally speaking, or it's an equal, right? And women should be able to really own that. I can really tell when a woman owns her power by her handshake, right? Either she's really limp like wrist, or she's really like, she owns it, or she just tries to be too assertive. That's number one. Just be aware of it.
When you're trying to grip and bring someone to their knees, I don't like those handshakes.
Yeah, like that hurt. Like I got nails, girl. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Like you're overdoing
I just got my manicure. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not good. My manicure. Anyway, so there's that. And the other one is tone of voice. As you can hear, my tone of voice, I believe it or not, I was from ages 1 to 7. I didn't speak. I was in speech therapy from age 7 to 14. That's why I don't have a Southern accent. Everyone in my family has a Southern accent except for me, because my speech therapist made sure I didn't have one. Diane, she was like, you're going to have a normal voice. So anyway, so I can turn it on and off, right? I can turn it on and off, but I don't do that. Posture is a big one, obviously, is just owning. I look at women all the time, especially nowadays with the phones. They're not owning their posture. That's just a body language, especially with the phones looking down all the time. I wish I could just go over to them and go, okay, just don't look at your phone. Look up, put
Straighten
your posture
up, right.
Straighten up, own. When you walk into a room like that, people notice that. They notice that you just own your space, right? You're just owning your space when you're walking in. Vibration of thought, of course, is a big one. This is all these things when you're thinking about charismatic. Just think of 007 or think of Beyonce or someone that you resonate as someone who's a sexy boss. They own who they are. They know who they are. They own their presence. They own their body. They own everything versus trying to cover it up. I know for myself, I tried to use to cover up my body. Like, I got boobs, you know what I'm saying? I got boobs. And I used to cover them up with like turtlenecks and like big, huge sweaters.
But were you covering them up for yourself or to make other people feel comfortable? I find sometimes we do that too. We do things to ourselves in thinking we're going to make other people feel comfortable when really you want to wear, a beautiful V-neck sweater or something.
For me, I was doing it at the time. I was young. I was doing it because I wanted to be smart and I didn't want a man to look at my body. So I was like, let's cover it up and then he'll see that I'm smart. That was just stupid. But I mean, that's what I did. Right. So, nowadays I might do it just because it's a conservative situation, obviously, but I still own my presence, and then of course, body adornment. I mean, that's a big one for women is owning, hey, by the way, you have legs and hey, you look great in those stilettos. I mean, it's just owning that you're a woman and not having to cover it up all the time. And I speak for myself, really, because for myself, I did that a lot when I was in my younger years. I was constantly trying to beat the boys by being one of the boys versus beat the boys by being me.
Right. By being and really embracing your feminine energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Realizing that the feminine energy, believe it or not, is a higher level of energy than a male energy. I'm not trying to say that we're better, maybe a little, but
yes,
I
mean, we can say that.
We are. Let's own it. So yeah, women's feminine energy is a very higher level energy. So if you own your feminine energy, then when you walk into a situation, you're always at a higher level.
Now, something else you mentioned in the book that I loved, it was early on, you talked about the importance of looking around yourself to see what you really care about or see what's important to you. You said you can tell by looking at someone's face what's really important to them, which I have to tell you, I did. I was like, oh, what's important to me? I was in my bedroom at the time, though. But you know what I saw? A lot of papers. Piles of papers, like documents or things. So I thought, and I always think, I'm organized and I'm this and I'm that. And I thought, is that important to me? I'm telling you, me and your book had a whole thing last night. So I was just like, I gotta ask Heather about that. What does this mean? But why is that self-awareness for everyone listening so important? I'll ask you about me later. But why is that important though, to stop and look around and see what's really important to you?
So what you focus on expands. Okay. So what you focus on expands. I do have someone come in and do feng shui once a year, but I learned this a long time ago. I'm very compartmentalized. I learned this around after the bankruptcy when I was restructuring my mindset. My bedroom has no TV in it. None. Has no papers in it. None. Has one book, maybe two on the nightstand. It's got candles. It's got really awesome bedspread. It's it. Nothing. Because that area is for rest, relaxation, and intimacy, right? Mm-hmm. So not there to watch late night, you're not, right? So that's important. All my papers in my office. Mm-hmm. It's like, even if there's piles, it's still in one space. I'm very big on clearing out clutter. Every time I clear out something, I lose weight. And I took on something called KonMari Way a couple of years ago, but does this spark joy? You pick up something, and you ask yourself the question, does it spark joy? Now, what you need to know is my family, if I look at a lineage conversation, my dad's kind of a hoarder. My mom was pretty, not like hardcore hoarder, like you can't walk into the house or anything, but like in general, like got a lot of stuff. Right. And let go of it. And there was a period in my life I had like 4 storage units. And around first of all, when you're going through bankruptcy and foreclosure and you got to get rid of stuff and you live out of your car, you get rid of everything, right? So you learned how to be minimal. And I actually enjoy it because the more stuff we have, the more time it takes to deal with it, right? So I think you start to really realize what's really important to you by what you put your attention on, even non-animate objects, right?
The same.
Another thing I have, so I just want to put this in here.
Sure.
I'm very big on having everything in my space, my home, working. There's nothing in my space that's not working. So if there's a coffee maker, it doesn't work, I get rid of it immediately.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Or fix it immediately. If there's a light out, I fix it immediately. Because anything that's quote unquote broken or not working, it's sucking in energy. It's taking a dead energy. Let's get rid of it. Get rid of it, get one.
People have that so much. It's like, this is a blender that I love that I got for whatever, a wedding, etc., but it doesn't work. And it's like, well, why is it? You really need the blender to work. It's not a decoration.
Right.
It serves a purpose.
Yeah. So it actually creates a dead space. So yeah, it's like having, dead flowers or something.
And with the looking around you too, I said it as literally looking around, but you also mentioned in the book about when you look at, saying that, oh, I want to be healthy, but then you're not, it means that is that really something that's important to you? Is there a reason that you quote unquote can't be healthy? Or all the other things that we say, I want to be rich, I want to be this, I want to be that. What kind of importance we're placing on it? So that's another part of that self-awareness as well, right?
Oh, very, yeah. I'm a health nut. Even during all that time of going through everything, I always work out. It's just what I do. It's because it's who I am. That comes from that construct again of who I am. I'm healthy, and I view myself that way. It's not something I go do when I need to. It's it's just what you do. It's like mothers. It's like looking at a mom and saying, well, are you going to go take care of your kid today? Well, I don't feel like it today. You know what I mean? It's like, it's who she is. She doesn't even question that. Of course, she's going to go feed her kid or take care of her kid. Like, why would you even ask me that? That's kind of how core it becomes for me in health and well-being and entrepreneurship. It's just who I am.
Another thing that you talk, I know I keep going back. I love the book. I told everyone I love the book. Another thing that I love that you talked about,
great.
Yeah, in the book was the importance of, you didn't say it this way, but just creating as entrepreneurs, speaking as entrepreneurs now as women, creating products, things that you can sell on your website or things that people can buy for you, figuring out a way to be able to sell something. And I mentioned that because I think that's something that, I'll admit, even me in the beginning, it was sort of, oh, I'm creating these things. And then it was sort of like, wait a minute, I need to package this. So sometimes we think, oh, well, I don't want to do this to make money. But it's sort of like, well, how are you going to continue to do this thing that you love if you don't make money? You're going to have this other thing, right? So you talk about, go ahead.
Let me speak to that. I'm really glad you brought that up. So I used to say that I coach entrepreneurs, and I still say that, but if I was really behind closed doors, I would say I coach artists. If you go talk to, let's say, a pottery, like they do pottery, right? Or they paint stuff. If you go talk to them and go, okay, I want you to go sell your work, they would freak out, right? Most artists don't like to sell their own work. And then they wonder why entrepreneurs, who are creating products, right? They're creating like courses, they get all freaked out about selling their course. Well, ta-da, it's the same thing. The reason why there's like a block, it's because it's their work. It's their passion. It's like, it comes out of you. It's your creation. It's your art. It's your art. It's on the wall and you take it personally. It's your baby. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I put this. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially women, specifically in that one thing. How do you sell your own work and get out of your own way to do that? How do you do that? How do you actually go through that? So I actually walk them through a process. I teach them a process on how to sell their own work because it is weird. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier for me to sell you someone else's work. I could sit here and tell you how great you are, and I could tell someone how I could sell you to someone else's program, right? You'd be like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. Meanwhile, that owner of that product is challenging. So I always tell people, understand that as an entrepreneur, especially a creator, you're an artist, right? And so if you get that, then you can start uncollapsing sales with your work. right? And that's really helped a lot of people. So that's what I kind of work with them on, because I'm not gonna tell them what they should create, right?
Right.
It's creation, like it's their baby. It's kind of coming out of them. I'm like, okay, great. That's what you created. Awesome. Let's go sell it. Let's figure out a way to sell it.
So share with our sexy sisters listening, what would you say are 3 of those tips that you often share with the people that you work with about how to sell their art or whatever they've created? Are there some top 3 things that come up often, or just that you can get us started?
There's a particular process. The first thing is to uncollapse sales, right? Sales from personal, taking it personal. That's the first thing. Number 2 is I teach people how to sell through storytelling. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you share your personal story in such a way that it's compelling to have your art? So I don't know if you've ever been into literally an art gallery, but I have a couple times. Mm-hmm. And the ones that really, all of a sudden, there's this random person talking in your ear about this particular painting you are looking at, going, I see nothing except red. And they start telling you this amazing story. And you're like, oh, I see the ship now. I didn't even see the ship, So you start to share the story of the work,
right? Not
the work, right? So I'll give you an example. If you take this painting home, you're going to feel amazing. I don't know, that $20,000 price tag probably made me feel bad. You know what I mean? So versus the artist was in deep depression about her dad dying of cancer when she made this in the hospital on his deathbed or whatever. I mean, now you're like, oh my God.
Now you're into the story.
Right. So now you're into the story. So you sell through storytelling versus if you buy my stuff, you're going to get some result. Mm-hmm. Right. It's all about selling the sizzle, not the steak.
The sizzle, not the steak.
Yeah. People try to sell the steak because you made the steak. You birthed that steak. And so you're like, it's steak. Look at that steak. It's good steak. It's tenderloin. It's like really good. It's like medium rare. Like, why'd you want that steak? You never sell steak. Ruth Chris is a great example. They always sell the sizzle. What do they sell at Ruth Chris? If you ever watch a commercial, Ruth Chris, they sell the ambiance of being with family and connecting. And you're at Ruth Chris, and it's a family style. We want you to have a great time with your friends and family. Oh, and by the way, you got some steak.
Right, right.
You have some asparagus and some steak while you're at it.
Right.
And you'll spend a lot of money. All right, come on in. I mean, but they sell the sizzle.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Because really, at the end of the day, they're selling steak and asparagus.
But they sell the sizzle.
Mm-hmm.
Very good, Heather. I love it. All right. I'm being conscious of your time, but I do have one more process I would love for you to share with us. The 6 steps to turning your burning desire into a reality, which a lot of us kind of stumble over as well. What are the easy steps that you have in the book that we can take to turn our desire into a reality?
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. So one is define what you want, but I would suggest don't go big. So don't go 10 years, 5 years, 2 years. I'm talking about like next week, right? Really define what is the feeling that you want. Determine exactly what you intend to give. So what you focus on expands. So if you want more money, though, you focus on helping more people. Okay, that's the key piece. So exactly what are you going to give in return for what you want? Establish a date. So if you want to launch, my biggest ones are launch dates. I'm always big on launch dates. Mm-hmm. Creation dates are a little more challenging, but launch dates are hard, right? And then you tell people, I'm going to launch on September 1st. And then everyone's like, I'm so excited for your launch on September 1st. And you're like, oh my God, right?
So, makes you accountable.
It's all about the launch date. Create a well-defined plan. That to me is working with someone outside of yourself. You're inside your own jar. You can't read the label. That's where I usually come in for clients to helping with define the plan, how they're going to get there. And then writing out clear, concise statements of everything. Like what actually is the intention you're going to create with this launch? What's the feeling experience? Like with my book, Sexy Boss, from concept to launch, it was 90 days. I mean, everything. And my goal was if one woman bought it and read it, it was a success. That was it. I didn't have this, I want to be number 1 Amazon. I didn't have any of that. I mean, I did on accident. I didn't even know until this woman one day said, congratulations, you're number 1 Amazon. And I was like, you're so sweet, but you're wrong. And she'd send me a screenshot. I was like, I didn't even know, right? I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
So make sure your intention And your goal is really a goal, not just because someone said you wanted it. New York Times bestseller is great, but what are you going to do with that? And then reread your statement of what exactly you want.
Excellent. Let's take a quick break for a special offer from one of our partners. Do you spend a significant amount of time creating incredibly smart, valuable, and dope content for your audience, only to feel like one or two people see your work when you promote it on social media? Did you know only 5 to 10% of your followers see anything that you post? That is why I love the social media management tool, Meet Edgar. And I had a chance to chat with CEO and co-founder Laura Roeder, yes, a woman, about how Meet Edgar makes sure your work has a better chance of reaching your customer.
What he does that's really different from other tools is repurposes your content so that you can get out of that cycle of creating 5 new updates a day, every day for the rest of time, which is how a lot of small businesses are handling social media, and it's driving them insane because who has time for that? So right. What Edgar does is stores everything in a library and then automatically repurposes and recycles your content for you. And the reason that's a really smart idea is because 5 to 10% of your followers see any status update that you post. So why would you spend all this time coming up with content to post it once or even post it twice when such a tiny percentage of the people who follow you and want to hear from you are going to see it? So the results we see for people, you just get a lot more traffic, you get a lot more exposure, and it saves you a lot of time because once you've built up your library, Edgar's sending everything out for you. You can just go in and chat with people and do kind of the fun stuff on social.
I'm telling you, Meet Edgar has saved me a lot of time in my own business and increased my social media engagement and, more importantly, traffic to my website. Want to give it a try? Go to ElayneFluker.com/Meet Edgar to sign up now and use the promo code SEXY, SEXY, to get 1 month free plus $5 off your second month. That's ElayneFluker.com/Meet Edgar, MEETEDGAR, 1 month free plus $5 off your second month. And now back to the show. So what would you say, Heather, entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
I'm stronger than I think I am. I mean, that's really it. Mm-hmm. And I don't, it sounds, a man is not a plan.
A man is not a plan.
A man is not a plan. So I think the big one for me is I'm the first generation of, I don't know how many generations of women, at least 3 that I know of, generation of women that a man was their plan, Mm-hmm. That's how they survived. And I'm really the first generation of my lineage to break that. So, that's really interesting.
So what does your support network look like now, your personal support network?
I don't have a big one. It's not big. It's intimate, but it's not big. Mm-hmm. I have some dear friends that are coaches, personal coaches, life coaches, marketing coaches that I call on. They call on me. I have a personal coach that I've had for almost 6 years. That's really my core. It's interesting. I'm part of a lot of groups, obviously, mm-hmm. Networking, stuff like that, but I don't share a lot anymore. And it comes from starting to trust myself. It's not about taking away from other people. It's more about learning to trust myself mm-hmm. and learning to come out with the ideas and allowing them to share their opinions after it's already launched.
Right. Absolutely. I get it. I totally get it. In closing, Heather, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
You're Mary Cry. It would definitely be Kim, who's still here on this planet, but it would also be a woman named Trish. And so, she knows who she is, and she's no longer here on this planet. But Trish was a huge shift in my thinking about who I am. So Trish, so she knows I love her. She's no longer here on this planet, but Trish.
Trish.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So now tell us how we can support you. Tell everyone your website and social media. Of course, I'll have a link to the book, Sexy Boss, which I love, but tell everyone how to find you and get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So you can, my books are on Amazon. You go to heatherhavenwood.com/Amazon. If you're interested in checking out my chat bot, which is super fun, it's super, you can interact with my chat bot. It's me with this really kind of goofy hair, and I have this necklace on that's a sexy boss. You got to look really hard, but it's there. You can go to askheatherann.com. That's askheatherann. ANN.com, no E. And it opens up to Messenger, and you have this cool experience with my chatbot. If you're just like not into chatbots, and that's cool, then you can just go to heatherhavenwood.com. And if you're interested in working with me, there's a button there that says work with Heather, and just get on a call with me and have a conversation about how I could best serve you.
Excellent. Heather, thank you so much. This was fantastic. I had so many more questions, but everyone, you have to read the book, get in touch with Heather, find out more about what she's up to. It's all fantastic. I appreciate you being here with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Ask this question before you do anything. Does it feed my confusion or strengthen my clarity?
That question is going to change lives. And you're not a tree, you can move.
Yes,
it's called U-Haul.
It's called U-Haul.
It's called U-Haul. Thank you, Heather. Hold on just a second. All right. I hope you enjoyed that rewind with Heather Havenwood. To find out more about her and what she's up to today, make sure you go to supportissexy.com. Go to that search icon at the top and just type in Heather, Heather. Her show notes page will pop up with links, resources, information about her book, and how to get in touch with her. Again, supportissexy.com and just search Heather. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you. Make sure we are connected on social media at Elayne Fluker, at Support is Sexy everywhere. Going to be doing a lot of traveling and adventures and talking to women entrepreneurs all around the world, or continuing to talk to them, but hopefully in person now, and want to be able to share that with you and hear from you what you're up to. Actually, let me take a second here. Thank you all so much for leaving comments on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and even sending me beautiful, beautiful, heartfelt emails about how the podcast has been supportive to you. You know, that is my intention, for it to support you and letting you know that you can create a business, you can create something that you can offer to other people, and letting me know that you are getting some value out of the women who come on the show, share their expertise, but also their journeys. A lot of you have said the stories have resonated with you in different ways. This is why I'm able to do a rewind and know some of the stories that really resonated with you. All that to say, thank you so much. Keep letting me know also when something doesn't work for you. I need to know both sides of it. So either way, I love hearing from you. I love you and appreciate you so much. As I always say, it would not be the same without you. All right. So now, until we chat again, always remember, support is sexy, and having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.